Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Trumbore with your nightly review for Monday, May 20. It's 4:02 p.m. Eastern Time. Dow Jones finished down 18 points to 15,335. S&P lost 1 point to 1665. NASDAQ lost 2 points to 3496. So fractional losses across the board. Gold, big reversal day. It was down big early, rallied back, finished up $31 to $13.96. Silver also had a big reversal. Oil closed at $96.60 and the 10-year Treasury with a yield of 1.96%. Chicago Fed President Charles Evans gave a speech today wherein he said the U.S. economy has improved, quote, quite a lot. Couple this with earlier Fed pronouncements, and most would agree the Fed is getting close to tapering its $85 billion a month in bond purchases. One thing, watch out for geopolitics. The Middle East is getting worse by the day, but I want to talk about valuation. Nothing ticks me off more than this topic. Wall Street is so incredibly careless and intellectually dishonest. For example, last week in the Wall Street Journal, the reporter writes the following: the price-earnings ratio on the Standard & Poor's 500 stock index now stands at 14.5, its highest level since 2010. And she doesn't say anything about what this 14.5 is. Is it trailing? Is it based on forecasted earnings for the rest of the year? What's the earnings forecast you're basing the 14.5 on? So here are the facts. This is the trailing price earnings multiple for key points in market history, recent history. January 2000, the Dow Jones peaked on January 14th back then. S&P 500 didn't peak until March 24th. NASDAQ peaked at 5,048 on March 10th of 2000. But in January of 2000, Dow Jones trailing PE was 25, S&P 500 33.3. Spring of 1999, the S&P's trailing PE actually did hit 36, the week of April 23rd. October 2007, another key market high. Dow Jones trailing PE 16.9, S&P 18.7. As of last Friday, Dow Jones 16.4, S&P 19.3. Now, the same article last week had another passage. The S&P 500's PE ratio of 14.5 is up from 12.7 at the beginning of the year. That's just a lie. It's a freaking lie. So I've showed you before, I have been keeping price earnings ratios since 1990. 23 years of data, handwritten. Look at that. This is the material for January of 2000. Hopefully you can zoom in on that. So anyway, on December 31st of last year, the S&P 500 PE was 16. It closed the year at 16. That's the trailing PE. Trailing means facts, not forecast. It's okay to put 14.5. Just tell your readers what you're basing that on. That's my crusade. The rest of my days, to try and get Wall Street, when you're watching CNBC and a strategist comes on and they start talking about the PE and never tell the viewers what the hell they are basing it on. Is it trailing? Because the reason why I'm bringing it up today is I'm not a bear. I don't think the market is necessarily going to go to hell. But I would argue that it's not cheap. So then you have to say, if the S&P 500 earnings for 2013 are going to be around $110, well then a multiple of 15 on that would be an S&P of 1650, and we closed today at 1665. If you want to talk about further multiple expansion, and you think the S&P is going to earn $110, and you put a multiple of 16 on that, then you come up with an S&P of 1760, and you can say that because there are no other alternatives to stocks these days. An old friend, Tony Dwyer, a strategist on Wall Street, about 2 months ago, predicted we would go to 1760. God bless him. I'm not short, so I don't care if we go to 1760. I give Tony a ton of credit because he stuck his neck out there before anyone else, and here we are just 100 points away. So good for you, Tony. I hope for your sake we hit 1760, but I'm just saying, watch out. And again, watch geopolitics, which I will get into in a second. Overseas in China, home prices rose in April in 68 of 70 cities year over year. So the government efforts to avert a property bubble and make homes more affordable is falling short. A recent survey by the central bank showed 68% of urban households found home prices too high. At the same time, wages are rising sharply for urban workers and with private companies, up 14%. Wages up 14% for private companies in China last year. So what does that mean? China's not as competitive, certainly on a manufacturing basis. In Italy, over the weekend, about 100,000 protesters, led by trade unionists, rallied peacefully in Rome against the policies of the new coalition government, urging the center-left Prime Minister Enrico Letta to scrap austerity measures and focus on job creation. But that was 100,000, not a small protest. Before taking office, Letta vowed to make job creation his priority, but critics are unhappy that he is focused on property tax reform instead, and that's because Silvio Berlusconi, that's Berlusconi's number one issue, is property tax reform, repealing a property tax that Mario Monti had put in place. Berlusconi basically said he wouldn't join a coalition unless Letta made that his number one priority, and that is at the expense of job creation. Chinese hackers, according to the New York Times, David Sanger and Nicole Perlroth, 3 months after hackers working for a cyber unit of China's People's Liberation Army went silent amid evidence that they had stolen data from scores of American companies and government agencies, they appear to have resumed their attacks using different techniques. Unit 61398, whose well-guarded 12-story headquarters on the edges of Shanghai became the symbol of Chinese cyber power, is back in business, according to American officials and security companies. Mandiant, the private security company that helps companies and government agencies defend themselves from hackers, said the attacks had resumed but would not identify the targets. Mandian said that the Chinese hackers had stopped their attacks after they were exposed in February and removed their spying tools from the organizations they had infiltrated. But over the past 2 months, they have gradually begun attacking these same victims from new servers and have reinserted many of the tools. In Iraq, speaking of the Middle East, at least 85 have been killed today in a series of car bombs and other attacks in Baghdad and Basra in the south. Basra has been generally peaceful, so that's a very bad sign. 230 have been killed since Wednesday in sectarian violence. That's the kind of pace they had in the 2006-07 Civil War before the Bush surge. Of course, there aren't any American troops now to help try and keep the peace. Over the weekend, 10 policemen were kidnapped in Anbar province. Their bodies were found today, executed. In Iran, tomorrow could be a big day. I believe the Guardian Council is ruling on who is eligible to run for president out of almost 700 candidates, and I'm anxious to see if they will approve Rafsanjani. If they do, I'll have, well, either way, I'm going to have a lot to say about it later on in the week. Fierce street fighting in a Syrian town near the Lebanese border has killed at least 28 Hezbollah fighters fighting for Bashar Assad in Syria. At least 50 Hezbollah fighters wounded, 50 Syrian rebels killed in this major battle for a town of Qusar, which lies along a strategic land corridor linking Damascus with the Mediterranean coast, which is the Alawite heartland, Assad and his clan being Alawites, which is an offshoot of Shiism. Qusar is overwhelmingly Sunni, so it's been a big rebel stronghold. Meanwhile, Syria has put its most advanced missiles on standby with orders to hit Tel Aviv if Israel launches another raid on its territory. Reconnaissance satellites have been monitoring preparations by the Syrian army to deploy surface-to-surface Tishreen missiles, each of which can carry a half-ton payload. This marks a significant escalation of tension in the region, which some say the United States and Russia appear to be preparing for a Cold War-style standoff as Russia continues to supply the Assad regime against all of our wishes, Britain's wishes, France's wishes. Some Israeli defense experts believe that if Israel strikes again in an attempt to keep weapons out of the hands of Hezbollah in Lebanon, Assad will have little choice but to retaliate. Uzi Rubin, Israel's leading missile expert, said the Tishreen missiles are extremely accurate and can cause serious harm. They could reach to Ben Gurion Airport, and if that were the case, that would obviously close all commercial flights immediately. Gunmen killed a senior female politician from a reformist party in Pakistan on Saturday night. This is a big deal, right after their elections. It was not immediately clear who killed Zahra Shahid Hussain, senior member of Imran Khan's PTI party. Khan said in a statement, her death has sent shockwaves across the rank and file of the party. Khan holds MQM leader Al-Taif Hussein directly responsible for the murder, as he openly threatened PTI workers and leaders through public broadcasts, said Khan. But Khan also holds the British government responsible, as I had warned them about British citizen Ataif Hussein after his open threats. The thing is, Hussein leads his party in Pakistan remotely from exile in London, and his party has been designated a terrorist organization by Canada, which the MQM party denies. In recent days, this fellow Hussein gave a speech which many Pakistanis felt was an incitement to attack political rivals. North Korea has fired at least 6 short-range missiles the last 3 days. The first 3 was not a big deal on Saturday, but now there is concern in the South Korean Defense Ministry that North Korea may be testing a new artillery piece. Well, I'm not going to get into the IRS scandal today. I know many of you saw the Sunday news programs. I will just say that Dan Pfeiffer, the Obama strategist or senior advisor that the White House threw out there, is a real worm. What a slimy, sleazy guy. CNN, ORC International Survey, has 53% of Americans still saying they approve of the job President Obama is doing. That's up a bit, but within the margin of error from 51% approval in CNN's last poll conducted in early April. More than 7 in 10 in the CNN poll say that the targeting by the Internal Revenue Service of Tea Party and other conservative groups that were applying for tax-exempt status was unacceptable. Only 43% say they have a great deal or some confidence in the people who run the federal government. 59% now say that the U.S. government could have prevented the attack in Benghazi. That's up 11 points from last November. And 52% say the Justice Department's actions were unacceptable in the Associated Press case. I'm going to be back with you on Thursday. I desperately need to take Tuesday and Wednesday off to catch up on a lot of stuff, including marketing, which I never get around to. I leave you with little Kid Rock. Try and find this on the web. This is the June issue of GQ magazine. All aboard the SS Kid Rock. It's hilarious. His cruise, an annual cruise that he holds with his fans. Someday maybe I'll go on one. Take care. It was 1980.